If I could have everybody's attention. I'm going to start the regular meeting. If we could stand for the pledge. Walter, if you could lead us in the pledge, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence. Thank you. Next, public participation. Walter?
Yes, Tom O'Brien, please. Go again.
Tom O'Brien, 134 Wellsville Avenue, New Milford. Also chair of the New Milford's Bike and Trail Committee. I'm here to urge you to reconsider the plan to eliminate the town planner position. I totally understand that this town is facing serious budget issues, but I think this position, having worked with Kathy Castagnetta for almost 2 years in my role in the Bike and Trail, the advice that she's given our group as we looked at all the different ways we can make this town more amenable to walking and biking has been absolutely invaluable. I mentioned we talked about complete streets already. We're working on a sidewalk plan for the town. We've done a road safety audit with her and with the town engineer and public works. The best help she's given us was on the preliminary engineering study for the New Milford River Trail, which should be ready to be unveiled to the public within a month. And no doubt, without her help, we would not have gotten to this point. And she took it on herself to do most of the outreach to homeowners and stakeholders, which I don't envy her for having to do. In general, despite the budget constraints, I think this is a really exciting time in this town. I think this town has tons of potential. And what this town has done with the riverfront, particularly in the last year and a half, has been very exciting. It's not just my committee. There's the Hidden Treasures Committee, the Boardman Bridge Committee, and especially the Riverfront Revitalization Committee. We are really on the verge of reconnecting this town with its riverfront and creating a place that tourists and businesses and people with young families will want to live here. And I would absolutely be assured that the chairman of those 3 other committees would echo my words. Maybe some of them are here today, as far as the help that Kathy has given them. So I think New Milford is a wonderful place. We need a town planner to help us get to the next level where we totally take advantage of what we have, this beautiful downtown, the recreational opportunities, the lakes and the rivers, and the ability to move people around. And if you want an example of why we should be doing this, just look at Brookfield, 9 miles south of us. They are currently building a downtown where none ever existed, and they built a beautiful 2-mile multi-use trail along an artificial river, essentially, because the Still River was moved to make room for Super 7. So Brookfield is trying to be like us, and we just need to keep being as good as we can be. And I think we absolutely need a town planner to do that. And I would hate to see Brookfield get a hold of Kathy Castagnetta, because I think she's been great at this job. So please, if you can, please consider keeping that position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Levi?
It's Lucy. My handwriting is terrible. Sorry.
Okay, I didn't get a piece out of that, but thank you.
My name is Lucy Wildrick. I live at 6 South Main Street. And my husband and I bought our property just over 4 years ago, so we're relatively new members of the community. And I do remember, not long after we bought the house, hearing that the town had hired a town planner, and I was really excited about that. I am someone who works in the real estate development business. That's what I do every day in communities from Washington to Boston. And I know firsthand how important it is for a town to have an in-house planner. There's a real difference from where I sit. Outside consultants simply don't have the day-to-day in-depth knowledge. and care for a community. In addition to the planning education experience, the ability to properly guide planning efforts and members of the various boards, let alone write grant proposals. And all of that is exactly what Kathy has done. So when I heard that her line was cut, I was devastated, frankly. I just can't imagine who is going to manage all of the planning tasks that she's been handling so capably. She's smart, dedicated, educated on the issues. She's essential, in my mind, to going forward. And there are so many exciting projects. Tom identified most of them that I'm familiar with. The riverfront revitalization, of which I'm a member of the board. The River Trail, Hidden Treasures, Old Boardman Bridge, the Century Brass Site, the Route 7 Corridor Study, and the upcoming POCD. Those are just the ones I know about. I frankly can't imagine how all of this goes forward without her hand on the tiller. Each of them requires professional leadership paired with the smarts and sensitivity to know how to best engage elected officials, members of the boards, and the community at large, and then to manage their input and engagement in the process. So I, too, urge you to reconsider that decision. I believe Kathy is essential to securing an even brighter future for the town. Thank you.
Lucy. Began with an L. Okay, that's close enough. Thank you, Lucy. Carl Dunham, please. Oh, my.
Carl Dunham, Kenwood Mountain Road. I'd like to echo exactly what the two previous speakers spoke to. I think they did it very eloquently. I think they did it very thoroughly. And I'd like to just point out another thing. I think the biggest thing we're trying to do in this town is to grow in a very good way, grow in a way that covers everybody. People misunderstood. I'm not against biking. I'm not against any of that stuff. I didn't like the way the ordinance was written. I think Kathy serves in a lot of ways. She has a history with the town from being in zoning, now being in planning, and more recently actually doing some of the economic development stuff. Pete, I think it's great for you to be the first person that anybody talks to insofar as coming to town. But I think she can be a very good help in doing what really needs to be done to help move projects along, and that's kind of a facilitator. Somebody who works with all the commissions and can do the very down-to-earth stuff. So I think the combination is good, but I think you'll lose somebody that's very important. So I too think that a town planner, especially in the name of Kathy, is a real asset to this town. And I think in balance, she brings in more than she costs. So I would also echo that. I would hope that you'd restore it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Adrian, please.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Bass. This is regarding, again, the possible appointment of Stephen Looney to the Community Center Committee. I was here 2 weeks ago. I spoke about the very same thing. I'm going to repeat basically what I said. There were some members who weren't here, so for their benefit, I'll go over it again. Is Mr. Looney a citizen right now, today? If he is, I withdraw my objection. If he's not, I still object. If he's not a citizen, he cannot serve on any town boards, commissions, committees, special or regular. The town charter, as far as I know, has not been amended to change citizenship and elector requirement in the 2 weeks since the last council meeting. 2 weeks ago at the February 12th meeting, I opposed his appointment. He's not a U.S. citizen. Mayor Bass said he did speak to former town attorney Randy DiBella, who said it was okay to appoint him, but said if council wanted to wait for a letter, they could. But Town Attorney Grimes had a different take on this when asked to give his legal opinion on Mr. Looney's eligibility. Mr. Grimes said, according to the meeting minutes, if a person is not registered to vote, then they are not an elector per Connecticut state statutes. And I should remind you all that all appointments to temporary or special committees must be consistent with charter and Connecticut general statutes. That's the law. Mayor Bass, why have you put Mr. Looney's name back on the agenda? You can't make up the rules as you go along. We have a town charter that governs what our elected officials can do and cannot do. Acting otherwise just erodes public confidence in elected officials and contributes to the cynical attitude that many citizens have toward government and politicians. At the last meeting, I went over the charter, section 1002, appointment and eligibility, that says no person shall be eligible to serve as a member of any regular town board or commission described in section 1001 of this chapter, except the Building Code of Board of Appeals, unless such person is an elector and a resident of the town of New Milford. And again, all appointments to special or temporary committees must be consistent with the charter and the Connecticut General Statute. This was confirmed by Town Attorney Grimes. A council member who's here tonight, I believe it was Council Member Skelly, asked whether Mr. Looney could be eligible because he owns property in town and pays taxes. The simple answer is no. He cannot vote in elections. He can vote in town meetings. And to vote in a town meeting does not make him an elector. There's a big difference. According to the state of Connecticut, Article 9 of the Connecticut Constitution prescribes the qualifications of electors to embrace every citizen of the United States. So if he's a citizen right now, I have no objection. If he's not, he is not an elector. There's also a precedent. I'm going to go back to 2 years from here. February 9th, 2016, a non-U.S. citizen was appointed to the youth agency by this town council. He or she was unanimously approved. This person had not previously revealed their non-citizenship status until after their appointment. This person could not be considered an elector despite being approved by the town council. So Mayor Gronbach withdrew that person's appointment. That was the right thing to do. That was a legal thing to do, because to allow a non-U.S. citizen to serve is a violation of the charter. It is the right thing and the legal thing for all of you, council members, to remove Mr. Looney's name from consideration for appointment to the Community Center Committee because he is not a U.S. citizen and therefore not an elector. And if you approve him, you're all violating the town charter. And I would ask that Council Member Szymanski, I see he's not here, but he should recuse himself from voting on anything concerning Mr. Looney because I think they have business associations together. Mayor Bass, I'm going to ask you, is there no one else in town who's a qualified U.S. citizen and New Milford resident who will step forward and fill the 25th position? Nobody besides Mr. Looney? That I find hard to believe. And if you can't find anyone, I'll volunteer. I'll do it. But you have to remove him from appointment consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent. Mary Jane, please.
Good evening, Mary Jane Lundgren, 89 Terniski Road. I'm here tonight to talk about public safety. As we all know, the country is in the midst of a huge opioid crisis, a gun crisis. And I had to say, I found it really appalling, Mr. Mayor, that you are cutting the police department. You've cut out the deputy chief of police. You've cut out a lieutenant, a sergeant, and I think maybe it was 6 or 7 officers. I don't understand it because you ran on protecting the town and doing something about the drug problem in New Milford, and I don't see how this is going to help anybody in the town of New Milford. And if anything, I think it's endangering every resident in the town. I personally, I cannot believe that you would run on this and then turn around and cut the police department. Where are you going with this? This is like absolutely, totally insane. And the other part of the equation is about the charter, that you're not following the charter. It is not your purview to remove the deputy police chief. It is up to the police chief, and possibly with some of your input. But town council members, you need to read the charter. You need to do your job because you're putting the town in serious jeopardy by cutting this police department. It is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Jeff Winter, please.
I was going to go by Lucy, but, you know,
Okay.
it's taken. All right, Jeff Winter, 22 Morey Road. About a week ago, or I should say just a little over a week ago, there was a special meeting called One Day in Advance for the Town Council and Board of Finance to review the audit report. Now, of course, we were promised during the campaign that that type of behavior wouldn't happen. Now, there's been an opinion from the town attorney saying that it was okay because there was going to be no votes by the town council. However, the audit was in to the town of New Milford no later than January 31st. That's the date stamped on the town audit. If it had been a day later than that, we would have had to have another extension with the state. So obviously the town had it for a minimum of 14 days and a minimum of 13 days prior to the special meeting being called. So I think it's unfair to say sorry for the short notice. You had it for 2 weeks prior. And as part of any special meeting, the town, members of the public are allowed to address whatever board and commission is involved. And of course, they have to focus only on the topic of that night's agenda. And I wanted to ask a question regarding the audit. Now, unfortunately, even though I raised my hand, I was not recognized once whatsoever by the chair. I was completely ignored. And I was also ignored by my, as I requested the town attorney and showed him this is a special meeting, there should be public involvement, and basically I was completely blown off. That's just not fair, and it's not reasonable, and that's not, shall we say, the process. What I wanted to ask, and you don't have to answer me now, but I'd like to know later, would be the surplus that showed about the undesignated fund at about 17.9 million. But it says in the audit that that did not include the 1.75 million used for budget offsets in this current fiscal year. So if that 1.5, okay. Well, in the audit it actually says 1.75. But does that mean then that the end of the fiscal year that was being audited, the undesignated fund was actually closer to about $19.4 million? Yeah, it would have been $19.4 million. Do you realize how well managed the town was in Mayor Gronbach's first year? Every single fund that's necessary went up, our debt went down, and our pension obligations were met. And actually, the amount that we owe decreased, the amount that went into the funds increased. We haven't seen that in forever, and I think that that needed to be brought out. That's outstanding management, and that's why we have the cushion today, and that's why we still have 17.9 million in there today. Okay, that's a lot of money, especially when we're considering layoffs, and also when we're considering hiring someone. So let's just quick talk about the charter real quick. You can't lay off Eleanor Cavelli without the mayor's consent and full approval of the Park and Rec Commission. That was not done. You cannot lay off the deputy police director without consent of the chief, and it's my understanding he didn't even know about it until that day. And to eliminate a charter required position of town planner seems to just go against, again, it goes against the charter. It's in there. So why do we continue to violate the charter on a regular basis? And we're only, what, 3 months in? And then finally, the position of grant writer.
Jeff, you have a minute.
Thank you, Walter. There was a so-called friendly amendment offered at the December 8th meeting that would lower the job requirements, especially the educational requirements for the position. However, it was offered as a friendly amendment, and as the letter stated, it was sent to the mayor's office back in December. That friendly amendment was not handled properly, so therefore the amendment to the job description did not take effect, and therefore if the person who was hired does not have a bachelor's degree, then the process has to start over. and that's plain and simple. Because the thing is a friendly amendment, and I won't go into the way it works, because I probably have, what, about 10 seconds? But John Tower, former town attorney, had even said to previous town council members that there actually is no such thing as a friendly amendment. Robert Rules of Order disagreed with that, but that was John Tower's opinion. But still, it was not handled properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Cindy Davis, please.
Park Lane West. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the violations of the charter. I have the charter that says that the mayor cannot unilaterally fire a department chair, someone from the police department. So it says, except as provided for the chief of police, all appointments of promotions and removals from the office of officers, members, and employees of the police department shall be made by the chief of police with the approval of the mayor under such procedures as are adopted for such purpose. And the appointees shall hold office during good behavior and until removed for cause upon written charges and after hearing. That's the charter. So, when the information was released that the deputy chief of police was removed, along with the Eleanor Cavelli, the assistant to the Parks and Rec, that was an illegal action. It was a violation. Not only did the mayor violate it, but the town council members. Where were you with your jobs to be elected to govern the town when this occurred? I had a conversation with the attorney. I wanted to understand about the charter. And one of the takeaways was, if the charter isn't followed, it's a violation, it is illegal. With the Eleanor Cavelli, if I'm saying her name correctly, she works for Park and Rec, or she's in a position. Her department, what she does doesn't require funding. It's revenue sustaining. Monies, you're saying no? There are monies that are made from her office. So that's a question I had in my mind. I don't have enough information on that. But it also required the commissioner from that department to be involved in her firing. So where were the council members to support or understand what was going on? Likewise, we have 2 attorneys now. Isn't the job of the attorneys to make sure that actions are done correctly? We are paying dollars for those 2 individuals, and there's all these concerns about the budget right now, and yet things aren't being done right on that end. That doesn't make any sense. So that's what I've come to talk about. I also don't understand the appointment of the grant writer in the fact that there was never a grant writer before. That's an added expense. We're trying to cut expenses, and now we put an expense there, and we're taking $10,000 from one place to allot for this position. The changes that are going on are not transparent, they're not clear, and I'm asking for the town council members to do their job and make sure they're doing their due diligence to address what wrongs might be occurring. That's what your job is. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Leah Gill, please.
Good evening. I'm here. Whoa. Said it was on. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm here to express concerns for issues that are concerning the facilities evaluation for properties in the town.
Leah, can you just state your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry, Lee Gill, Butterbrook Hill. I request, no, I implore Mayor Bass and each council member to delay the Facility Utilization Committee to impartially reevaluate the candidates selected before going forward. Mr. Mayor, you campaigned on transparency and inclusion. Now is the time to prove it. There are definite conflicts of interest among the candidates, to wit, Wendy Fallenbach, Board of Ed member, which board, by the way, refused to move from East Street to the Pettibone building. And she was on the 25-member committee in 2015 regarding Pettibone. Paul Szymanski, town council member, not a professional structural engineer. A proctologist is not a colorectal surgeon. Don't confuse engineer and engineer. Tom Pilla was on the 25-member 2015 Pettibone committee, but he published a newspaper article against saving the Pettibone building in favor of tear down. And that included you, Walter Bear, saying that it had problems that the state proved were not true on asbestos and mold. Then we go on, Nick Polder. He's a member of the new Community Center Committee, on which I am also. It's a conflict to serve on two committees. Joe DiGregorio, again, a conflict to serve on the Facilities Committee and the new Community Center Committee. Beyond that, in the fall of 2015, there were 25 members on the Pettibone Committee, one building being evaluated by 25 individuals. Yet, you only named 9 candidates to evaluate multiple buildings, land, whatever. That doesn't seem, the proportions, the ratios are out of whack. It must be changed. The importance and qualifications of the Facilities Committee cannot be underestimated. You must publicly solicit best qualified, non-biased members and remove those with conflicts. It's not a personal thing, it's a qualification thing. We have to make it truly transparent. Assign economic development and structural engineering professionals and a town planner to lead this facilities committee. We must know what we have and what to plan for, because very likely more classrooms are going to be needed in a few years. The town is not going to shrink. More people come in all the time. Okay, now, the obvious risk and potential liability for New Milford of an insufficient and self-serving study performed by an ethically challenged group, better described as non-partisan clique, or as I should say partisan clique, lacking professional expertise, will be a major expense New Milford cannot afford. These decisions definitely affect our town long term. Costly, irresponsible, short-term actions will be your administration's legacy. And by the way, people
Leah,
are
you have
watching
1 minute,
like
please.
white on rice. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa, please.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me and everyone else to appear before you this evening. You're a new council. I have never appeared before you before, so let me give you 2 seconds of why I am here. Excuse me?
State your name and address, please.
Teresa McSpedden, 16 Old Stone Road. Thank you, Mike. I forgot about that. After the last national election and after the horrible divisiveness and the things that happened to the previous mayor, I, who have been a citizen for almost 30 years here, was found that I had to get involved locally. I was a regular citizen who sat home, paid my taxes, and did what was right. But because of what was done recently on the national level and on this local level, I felt compelled to get involved and do what people tell you to do. Volunteer for committees and speak out. That's why I appear before you, and that's how I come to appear before you. I think it's only the second or third time in my 30 years that I've ever come before town council. So I leave that as the backdrop as I repeat and I talk about some of the things that have already been talked about tonight. I would like to speak about these topics tonight because they are of importance. First, I would like to speak about the recent so-called position eliminations or firings. As we have all learned this evening and previously meetings, the way these happened was not in keeping with the town charter that outlines the processes and procedures. It is apparent to all that the budget cuts were a ruse used to further a very political agenda. Under the wise financial leadership of our former mayor, David Grombach and Lee Palmer, they anticipated that the state would make some cuts and set aside $1.1 million in cash from bond premiums to help us with that. Yet that has not ever been mentioned. While that will not cover all the state cuts, it does help immensely. A good, wise management decision to handle further cuts would be to involve the department managers and the commissions and ask them for their sage advice on where to cut, not to make ill-informed decisions from on high. This is not how you pull people together. It is how you divide people. The assistant chief of police, the assistant tax collector, the project manager, and others should be reinstated immediately to their positions. Considering the recent increasing school shootings and events at the high school, how can you let the assistant police chief go is beyond comprehension. It is dangerous. The chief, as far as I understand, was not even consulted on this termination. It is horrible optics for you all. And if our children become in danger because of this decision, we will hold you accountable. We are watching you. Doug Skelly, you are on Park and Recs. You know Eleanor. You have worked side by side with her. How could you have let this happen to her this last week? It is just horrible. Why did you not step up when this craziness was happening? The monies to save Eleanor are now being proposed to be taken from the Lynn Deming funds. Is this what you support? Doug, it goes against everything you run on. You need to speak up and be a council member of the people that you campaign to be. We are watching you. The project manager in Parks and Rec and the assistant Parks and Recs are vital to ensuring projects happen on time and on budget. Every construction person understands the value of a good project manager. Mike and Tom, you especially in this room, you get that. You and many in construction know when you let a project manager go, and you have no project managers, what a terrible, short-sighted decision that is. We are watching you. Lisa, you ran a campaign on processes being followed. Where were you when all these processes for these terminations were being completely disregarded? Now is the time to walk the walk. We are watching you.
Teresa, you have a minute, please.
Thank you. To all the members of the town council, you deal with budgets, not the mayor. You pass the budgets. We are watching you. Second, I want to call your attention to the creation of the grant writer position, a completely unnecessary and political position. Considering all the cuts that were just made, how can you even continue to try to justify this added position? It is an insult to all citizens of New Milford. Most of the people laid off were already writing very effective grants for their departments, in addition to a myriad of additional wonderful everyday tasks. I must call your attention to the person put in this position has the bare minimum qualifications, has been proven to willingly take illegal bonuses and health insurance and sick time not given to other town workers, and to sue the town. This is not a person who has the best interest of New Milford. We are watching you. Finally, as I'll mention again, we are watching you and holding each one of you accountable. Pete, you won by only 300 votes. You by no means have a mandate. You and all the town council serve all the people of New Milford.
Please. Thank you.
We are watching you.
Thank you.
Is the list done?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, let's just,
Yep. Thank you. Next, if it's okay with the council, before we do the mayor's comments, can we do the proclamation?
Yes, please.
Can I make a motion for that?
Second.
You say
I
it,
move.
Tom? You move? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The members for Julia's Wings, if you could step forward, please. We'd just like to do a proclamation. Whereas aplastic anemia is a rare and serious disease, the person's bone marrow fails to make enough blood cells. And whereas aplastic anemia can appear at any age, in any race or gender, with between 600 and 900 people in the United States being diagnosed each year. And whereas many people who have aplastic anemia can be successfully treated with prompt care with blood and marrow stem cell transplants, offering a cure for some people with this disease. And whereas individuals with aplastic anemia often require specialized medical and support services to ensure their health and safety, and to support families' resilience as they manage the financial burdens that aplastic anemia can cause. And whereas the Julius Wings Foundation, formed in the honor of local resident Julia Maslin, is now celebrating 4 years of service for families affected by aplastic anemia and dedicated to providing funding for research, is spearheading an awareness effort called Operation Wear Red, in order to educate parents, families, professionals, and the general public about aplastic anemia and its effects. Now, therefore, I, Pete Bass, Mayor of New Milford, Connecticut, do hereby proclaim February 25th through March 4th, 2018, as Aplastic Anemia Awareness Week.
Say a little something to begin with. Yeah. I'm Julia's grandma, and this is my husband, Monty. He's Poppy, said Julia. And Julia fought a year with aplastic anemia, and she lost her battle even though she had a bone marrow transplant. But her wish was to continue having funds available for families that have children or whatever age group, to be able to be with the person that has the disease. So we raise funds in order to send to these families. It's totally volunteers on our committee, and it helps the families being able to be with the person that has this disease. There's no financial aid for aplastic anemia because it's not a cancer. So that's what we found out. So it's a real financial burden. So any monies that we accumulate go totally to the families of the people. And we've served, how many, 90?
So we're above 100 families that have been served since the inception of Julius Wings. There's been over $120,000 that have been allocated towards research. And we've dispersed over $160,000 in grants to those families. Operation Wear Red is, like we talked about this week. You can find out more information at operationwearred.org. And we're very, very excited to announce that recently, thanks to the generosity of Gary Goldring, we do have an office on Bank Street here in New Milford. It's brand new. It will be manned 1 day per week. So even though we kind of started in Sherman, we've touched so many people across the country, across the world. We've touched thousands and thousands of people through this awareness campaign. And every person that learns about this disease allows us to continue to fight the fight, and the letters that we get from these families and, people saying we had nothing but condiments in our refrigerator. I couldn't be with my child. I didn't have gas in the car in order to go to the transfusions. These are the things that we're making possible in Julia's honor, and we know it's a long meeting, and we know that this is just one more thing to kind of add to it, but New Milford has always been extremely supportive, and we're so very happy to have this proclamation made. If you've been down the green, you'll see that it's all lit up red. We did light that up red, and if somebody asks you why it's happening, just let them know. Okay, smile.
Next, I'd like to do mayor's comments, and I'd like to address a few things. First, I would like to address the community center subcommittee. The first meeting will be on Friday at John Pettibone for the committee to have its first meeting. We're also going to take a tour of John Pettibone so that the committee members, I'm inviting the council members, Board of Finance members, and public at large for you to tour this facility because it is your facility. It's the public facility.
What time is that?
Diane?
6:30. Friday night?
Yep. Next, I'd like to address something that's been presented here, also on social media and throughout people's, let's say, opinions. And that's the layoffs that are affecting the town. And let me reiterate to you, they're layoffs, not firings, layoffs. So I'd like to have Mr. Bolero, who's our Human Resources Director. Is Mr. Bolero here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
So Mr. Bolero, just so the public at large can know, is there a difference between a firing and a layoff?
There's a
And
big
can you,
difference
and
between
can
a
you
layoff.
explain that to me, please?
So, a firing is when you have an employee inside a position, and whether it be for willful misconduct or another means of any sort, a firing is when a person is removed from a position. A layoff is completely different. A layoff is when we're eliminating the position in total. So when you eliminate the position, there is no position left to put someone back into. So you cannot refill a position in which a layoff has occurred. With a firing, you are vacating a position which you will then in turn refill.
Thank you, sir. Another thing that was pointed out is concerning the assistant police chief and concerning the ability during a layoff for the mayor to conduct layoffs. So to Town Attorney Grimes, can you inform the public on layoffs?
With respect to that position or in general, Mayor?
In general, sir.
I think the HR director, personnel director Bolero stated it pretty well. He did ask me to opine on the subject, and it's okay with me sharing the opinion with the public that the absolutely, it's the layoff and the firing is two totally different things, and I think he stated it well. When you eliminate the position, you don't have a position to be filled. So there has been with any of this, in gathering the information. Before I did this research, the mayor informed all department heads back in December, I believe it was, and the finance director that we were facing this situation with the revenue stream. All department heads, from what I'm told, were asked to come back to the mayor's office and to the finance office with ideas on how to get creative given the revenue stream. When that did not happen, I'm told that everything was going to be on the table, and that might include layoffs. So when an employee is terminated and their position is not being eliminated
it's not that they're being not removed because of their job performance or for anything else. Termination can happen for a variety of reasons, as the personnel director mentioned, willful misconduct, insubordination, medical problems that prevent somebody with the ability to do their job, whatever the case may be. The position terminated, the employee vacated will then be posted so that it can be filled. In terms of what happened with the deputy police chief, this was not a termination as considered by Charter Chapter 9, Section 901. Nobody was removed for with or without cause. The position was eliminated. We're not, the town is not going out to hire a new deputy police chief because the position doesn't exist anymore. In terms of the council's involvement with the terminations, that was hit on. From what I'm told, the layoffs are not yet complete in that some of the positions that were eliminated have not chosen to take a retirement package yet. They're still considering their options. Once that's all done and the personnel director and the finance director know those people's final decisions with respect to the layoffs, what will have to come back to the council at that point is the adjustments to the budgets that absorbing those positions takes. The council will indeed have to approve that, and it will have to go over to the Board of Finance for approval. Now, if somebody, since before the question gets asked, what if the council turns it down? That doesn't necessarily reestablish those positions. It's going to fall upon the council to find where that money's coming from otherwise. So, that answers your question, Mayor?
Thank you.
Also, did somebody else have a question?
No. Also, it's been brought up in sites and also in public that I'm jeopardizing public safety by the elimination of the assistant chief's position. Mr. Bolero, indeed and in fact, are we hiring how many new police officers?
We have 3 new police officers that will be starting the academy March 5th. And we have slotted for 2 more positions to be filled in an academy in New Britain beginning in May.
And those police positions, patrolman positions?
Patrol positions.
So they will be boots on the ground?
They will be boots on the ground.
And how many more police boots on the ground will we have once these members are within the New Milford Police Department than the past 2 years?
So we've lost 12 patrol positions in the past 2.5 years, 3 years. So this will replenish just about half of those positions, moving us in the right direction.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'd also, within my mayor's comments, would like to thank the chief and would like to thank the men on the force. I did speak to them after the layoff during their roll call hours. I'd also like to thank the chief and the men for their job at the New Milford High School. I also toured the Scotticoke facility to see the safety inputs that our Board of Ed partners have worked on to create a safe environment, and we'll be touring the other schools because safety is paramount. Next is the budget itself. So there's been a lot of conjecture. I did a budget presentation for those of you that didn't see it, either here live or on Facebook Live or whatever. We're facing daunting tasks, the town of New Milford is, with the state cuts and with the revenue reductions in projections for next year. It's the equivalent of us losing our 4 largest commercial taxpayers like that. And who would they be? Eversource, Kimberly-Clark, Kohl's Shopping Plaza, and the Stop and Shop Plaza. Gone. Revenue, gone. So it's not that we want to be mean. It's not that we're doing things hastily. It's a fact that we have to come up with the money. $700,000 this year and over 3.3 million next year. So it's a daunting task that requires both the mayor's office, the town council, which is your body, and the Board of Finance working together. The budget starts tomorrow, deliberations between the council and the Board of Finance. I'll be bringing you forward the mayor's budget, as I already have, for us all, including the public, to get your input, to see where we go as a town and how we go as a town. And there may be some things that some people like, maybe some things some people don't like. But we all need to work together, especially during these challenging times. Another thing as well, as you will see on your agenda for the council, it was made mention tonight of the Facilities Subcommittee. Oh, thank you. I'd like to let you know that I spoke to Mr. Pilla, and he is removing his name from the Facilities Utilization Committee. And the reason being is at the next meeting, I'm going to be bringing forward the creation of the Youth Fields Subcommittee. And this is something that we need to do as we're planning for our future. There's fields that have needed to be done, need to work on, and a plan put in place. Because some of our fields are on private property. So Mr. Pilla, being the chairman of the pension committee, has a limited amount of time. He did chair that commission before and would rather be working on that. So if someone else is interested in being on the Town Facilities Utilization Subcommittee, please bring your name forward and we'll be addressing that appointment at the next meeting. As far as the grant writer position that's been talked about tonight, the reason for the grant writer position is a pretty simple one, and that's the fact that we've lost over $3 million in revenue from the state. This is the only town position that's sole focus will be doing one thing: bringing in revenue from regular grants from the state, the federal government, and private foundations. Assassinating someone's character is wrong. Give that person a chance. That person has been successful already in getting grants for our town. So I think you give someone the ability to succeed or fail. But to come up here and to get on social media and yell fire in a theater, to me, is wrong. It's not what the public wants. It's not what the investors want. And it's sure as heck not what the regular community wants. Next is working with the Board of Education. So as we all, or most know, we still have to come up with $700,000 this year and monies for next year. I've had many meetings, almost weekly meetings, with Superintendent Josh Smith, their finance director, our finance director, Board of Ed chairman, and we're all working diligently as best as we can to come up with a solution for this year and for next year. It's not going to be great for everybody, but we're working to solve a problem. And that's what we're here to do. So with that being said, next I'd like to move on to approval of prior minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, Commission on the Arts.
Move for, regarding a road closure request for the south crossover street adjacent to the bandstand on the green. Street will be closed during the operating hours of the Edwin Kincaid concerts. They're planned for 6 Saturday evenings, July 14th and 21st, August 4th, 11th and 18th, and 25th. They'll start at 5:30 until the concerts are over, and the times will vary somewhat each evening.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Tax collector.
Move to, regarding the February 28th refunds in the amount of $1,122, leaving a balance of $1,003.87.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, ordinances. And this was for our general public hearing that we had prior to this meeting.
All right. Move
council take action regarding revisions to ordinance Chapter 5B, Article 3, Section 5B-21, General.
And to Attorney Grimes, for those council members that weren't here, if you could just kind of give them a brief synopsis.
Well, I do see,
Sure.
I
I'm
do
sorry.
see Mr.
Is there-
Owen,
is there a
Mr.
second?
Reynolds here now, so.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you.
As Brian and Kevin can stop me if I'm wrong, basically this takes an existing ordinance and it adds a third contact to issue the inspection fee to. It could be the owner, the occupant, or the business owner or homeowners association concerning the unit. Am I correct? So it basically was recommended, I believe, by the State Fire Marshal's office, and we're adding one word to the existing ordinance.
Any further discussion?
You have a second?
Yeah, we'll do,
So did you want to,
want to do them separately?
yep, want to do them separate?
Yes.
So did you just pass that ordinance?
Nope.
No, we
So,
didn't vote yet.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Move for possible action by the council regarding the newly proposed Complete Streets Ordinance, Chapter 18, Article 4, Section 18-85, Complete Streets.
So just so that we're clear on process, as Mayor said during the public hearing, the council has 45 days from the public hearing to take up this ordinance. If there's questions the council members want asked or data from Mr. Stanton or otherwise, you're not on borrowed time at this point. So, up to you.
And Mr. Stanton, for those council members that weren't here, if you could kind of give a brief overview, and I know Lisa had some other questions,
So do I.
and Katie, and there may be other council
Excellent, I'm
members.
glad there's some
Thank you.
members here. I did hand out one sheet of paper, and for the members of the public, I'm Dan Stanton, Town Engineer with Public Works Department. So working with the Bike and Trail Committee, one of the key ordinances that we are looking for to improve the community, both safety and vibrancy of the community and health, is the Complete Streets Ordinance. This is something that we've been working on indirectly for probably 20 years now, since the downtown committee was formed. So I highlighted, some of the successes, and just for the public, there's been 11 downtown pedestrian projects. We've done nearly half a dozen or more traffic calming or bike friendly projects on other roads, including Grove Street, Boardman, identified bike routes for the public and guests to the community. We've had a bikeability plan for a number of years now, where we've identified signs and markings on certain routes through town that we found advantageous for riders. Even as to 4 years ago, Bike Walk Connecticut identified New Milford as the 34th out of the 169 towns for bikeability and walkability. So we've got good bones there. We have a very good, score. We've got the commitment and the Bike and Trail Committee. We've got a plan and document. What this does is creates a mechanism for decision making about sidewalks, bike lanes, things like that. It gives an opportunity for this council, committees to weigh in on the importance of that, given this year's budget circumstances and our view of the future in New Milford of what we want this community to look like. So this aligns with both town plans of things that have been mentioned on previous POCDs for biking and walking, for making the community safer. This has a mechanism for a minimum funding level that we would want to go out there. So we're not just talking the talk, asking developers to do something. This is specifically on town-funded projects. There's obviously other boards and commissions that can dictate requirements in those fashions. What we're looking to do is seek out opportunities to provide safe travel for pedestrians, bicyclists, people in wheelchairs or in scooters. So I'll just go to questions and.
Okay, I can be quick. And thank you again, Dan. And let me be clear, I love this idea. I think we need to really embrace the quality of life that this has the potential of improving for our town. Where I'm a little concerned, as I mentioned previously with my questions, and what I'd like to see before moving forward is, I think we do need some type of a draft of a master plan. I'm uncomfortable with an ad hoc approach, because I think that may or may not help us achieve the long-term goal of a better quality of life if we're ad hoc, as opposed to having a step-by-step 5-year lookout on a master plan. Mr. O'Brien said that the idea was not that this would be required but not fall through the cracks. However, the wording in the ordinance is required, but then as appropriate. So I'd like to see some of the conflicting language examined and maybe changed a bit. And I also found it a little bit conflicting where it says that we're going to appropriate the money, but if there's no money, we won't appropriate it. So that was a little unclear. And lastly, I'd like to see a little stronger wording about the tie into the federal DOT grant program, and that every effort will be made through this to comply with that, so we get a bigger share of those funds if we're not getting them already. And that'll take care of me.
Okay.
And Dan, you will get us the policy from the state?
Yes, that's on my list of things to do for you. So, for those that weren't here, Commissioner Rediker from the DOT had drafted a complete streets policy for their department, and we cited some examples.
But it's not been implemented, or?
No, it's implemented,
Just
sorry.
still in
Like,
process?
Using the correct.
Oh, it is,
The
okay.
incorrect term. There is a policy.
Okay.
At DOT.
I am also, as Ms. Hita said, I am a little surprised by some of the vagueness in certain areas, but then in other areas, such as under implementation, and again, I'm all about having a place for bikes to ride. I don't want them in front of my car. In implementation, you've got Public Works Department, Town Council, Town Boards and Commissions, Town Committees or Subcommittees. All those people, we will never get anything done, and I quite frankly don't understand how a subcommittee would even want to be involved. As the council normally works, if something were to come before us from you, Public Works, whatever, we try to involve where it's not our main focus. So certainly we would then ask Tom or the Riverfront Committee, which is overlooking all of this. And the POCD, Public Health and Safety, it's the first charter, the POCD, any policies and procedures, planning, where I sat for several years, in zoning. There's nothing in this town that is more important than public health and safety. And anybody who wants to allude to the fact that anybody who ever sits in our mayor's office, and I don't care what party they are, or at this table, thinks otherwise, you're really not paying attention to what goes on in our town meetings. That is of the utmost importance. So I think having specifics is very important, because we don't want anything to fall through the cracks, such as public health and safety. And I do think that a little looking outside the downtown, I love that we make our downtown nice, but I will say that on town roads that are far afield, there's a need there. I live on one, and the fact that there's fewer population around just lets people drive that much faster and pay less attention. And you really take your life in your hands to drive on some of our roads. Wellsville Avenue, come up to my road, just, try to get yourself up to Sherman in one piece. So those are just things. I think this is a wonderful idea, and I hope it goes forward and gets implemented as part of our future work. But I just, as Lisa said, I'd like to see a master plan, and I'd like to see maybe some more, I know this was taken from the state, which is a great place to start. I'd just like to see it more applicable specifically to us. And I do appreciate all that you have done, and Tom and Kathy. So thank you for that.
Mr. Esposito.
Listen, I've been a supporter of bike trails and sidewalks since I sat in this seat 9 years ago. I like the intent of this. I just think the wording needs some help. We need to expand on some of the definitions. I mean, I've got questions on almost every single line item here. One of them being a transportation improvement project. So the way it reads here, every time we chip seal a road or do an overlay, we'll have to go through this type of analysis. I mean, that's the way it reads to many.
That complies with the ADA statutes from the federal level. We're needing to comply with that for members of the public that are in wheelchairs, have walkers, or whatever, as the community, grows. And to that point, we want to make sure that in the budget, when we come forth and there's, a line item for sidewalks, there's a line item for guardrail to protect, we have an explanation and an agreement of the values that we're putting forth into the project.
So in other words, we're about to embark on a road project of projects that have been kicked down the can down the road for 15 or 20 years.
Right.
And we need every dollar to try to stretch that to get these roads improved. And right now, from what this looks like, we're gonna start pulling 2% of that money out of there. Listen, I don't wanna run this through. I appreciate this and I support this in concept, but I think we should table this for a short period of time, do a little bit more wordsmithing to make sure that the definitions are very clear, that we have a complete master streets plan in front of us and a transportation plan, and get the road committee, who I found their presentation was fantastic about a month and a half ago, involved in this, and get more eyes and more ears involved in the process. As I said, I support the bikes, Tom. You know that. I've met you in many locations with supporting bike transportation here in town, making it available for walkers. I walk up and down my road. I'm thrilled that I only see 5 or 6 cars at a time. I've lived on roads where I would see 5 and 6 cars every 5 minutes, trying to keep my kids from getting hit by cars.
Right.
So I'm on it. I'm on it.
I know you've stepped out in traffic to calm traffic.
I have stepped. You've seen me do this. I'm in favor of sidewalks that maybe are not paved but are stone dust, so that they're not the obligation of everybody in the middle of the winter to keep their sidewalks clear, like downtown or in New York City or in other metropolitan areas. But I think we need to do a little bit more work on the verbiage before we put ourselves in a box, as Carl Dunham says. I do agree. He's a supporter of roads and bikes, like many of us are. I think this just needs a little bit of work. So I'm looking to table this tonight if we could, and continue this conversation. I love the concept. Please don't get me wrong, but I think we need to work on the verbiage.
Mike, just want to clarify something Dan just said though. Is you worded it that way to be compliant with the federal?
You're currently required to do that we're required to do that.
And by not doing that, we could lose out on grants.
You would need to indicate, the engineer would need to certify that we comply with those requirements, yes. The same example, are we going to be targeted like Philadelphia or San Francisco? No, we're New Milford, and we want to be, sensitive to a number of factors, but I think Katie pointed out there are people that walk and run in the rural areas, they want to walk their dog. These are all contributing funds towards those improvements, not just vehicles.
Okay. But you do the compliance part of things now, currently.
Correct.
Right? So you don't gather the council and committees and subcommittees and everybody's brother-in-law to do that. You just do it as part of your process,
to that point is it's looking at the party having jurisdiction. Like today it's called the Bike and Trail Committee, but if there was a change to a Complete Streets Committee, that might be the appropriate subcommittee of
I see.
council.
So it's just a matter of who
it's
table the buck stops at. I get it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what I was looking for with that vocabulary. Some of that also was borrowed from others that have added up some of that wording.
Any other questions? Doug, do you have any questions? Katie?
I guess.
Okay.
So I would like to make, it's not a friendly amendment or an amendment here to table this. A motion to table this, just till we get a little bit more involved.
There's not a need to table this. It stays on the council agenda for 45 days until it either gets passed, gets turned down, or dies a natural death.
Okay, so we don't need to.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the Housatonic probate court.
Move to take action regarding a request for transfer of funds in the amount of $25,000 to pay for the renovation of 47 Bridge Street, future home of the Housatonic probate court.
Second.
And that would consist of, there he is, That would consist of $14,006.03 from the probate revenue account number 104-11900/-4810, and then $10,993.97 from the contingency account number 109-80-000-58900.
Judge.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Actually got some good
Yep,
news for you.
Sorry, we have
Sorry.
a second? We did Walter.
Walter seconded it.
We did receive a check-in with regard to part of what was going on tonight. So I want to bring it to show everybody that we did indeed get a check. So this check is actually from one of the towns that is in our consolidated district. So in talking to the finance director, we're asking for $10,993 from contingency. However, since we received this check, and this is in the amount of $12,273.74, that we want to change that request to not take any monies out of the contingency, but just to allow this check to pass through the accounting to our project.
Sounds like
the
you're
amount, Marty?
getting that back.
This is $12,273.74.
Put it in revenue.
So it'll go right to revenue instead of going through.
And who did that come from?
This came from the town of New Fairfield.
Not doing it fair.
Go Rebels, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We don't like this football.
What happens to the extra money?
That's a good question. What happens is that tomorrow you're going to hang on because we've got a great presentation for you as to where the monies come in. But for the probate courts, our court is 5 towns. So based on that, there's a statutory formula as to what the cost of the court is, and then the formula dictates what each town pays towards that court's costs. So each town is given their fair share to send into the town. At the time of this request, we didn't have all the checks in, and there is another check, you know, for lack of a better expression, in the mail from one of the other towns, so we will be getting other funds in too towards that. But a lot of the stuff that's in the revenue is including what we had set aside for this project in itself, so we're kind of happy to see this, and, you know, money coming into town, you guys should be thrilled.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you'd like
money
to,
not coming
you'd
out of
like to
contingency
delete
is
that?
even more thrilling.
Right.
We're going to delete the contingency
Right.
amount?
So this change will necessitate the full $25,000 coming out of the revenue account rather than anything coming out of contingency.
So we need a new
Just
motion.
withdraw the motion.
Well, I think so.
So
I
withdraw,
withdraw my motion.
and second,
I'll
withdraw
withdraw my
second.
second.
Okay, and we'll do a new,
Walter
oh,
made.
Walter, sorry, withdraw
I've
second.
seen Walter seconded it.
Okay, and then we're gonna
Okay,
make a new
so
motion.
I'm going to move that we request a transfer of funds in the amount of $25,000 from the revenue account, whose number I don't have. Oh, yes, I do. Same one?
Yep,
104-11900-48810. That will pay for the renovation of 47 Bridge Street, the future home of the Housatonic Probate Court.
Second.
Katie,
Any-
do you want to just include it going to the probate operating account number?
If you'd like.
It's written there. I just thought it'd be-
Will be moved to the probate operating account 104-14000-56001.
Thank you, Katie.
any other,
Yeah, I
Mike?
mean, this isn't about the money transfer. The space you have is quite a bit larger than the space space you'll have is larger than the space you're coming from.
Correct.
Do you guys need that whole space, or is that,
More than you know.
yeah?
You should come downstairs
Have you seen our court?
and have a seat in one of the desks just to see what is going on.
Where?
Yeah, where?
Where would he
You
sit?
lock yourself in the vault.
Because we've actually gone to the state and received authority to have another part-time worker. We don't have any space for him. So it's kind of silly to say that the court's not able to keep up with everything when we don't have a seat to put somebody in to do the work, so.
And
We
Judge,
definitely need the space.
also within the Park and Rec building, our IT department is housed there as well?
Correct.
As well as all of our IT infrastructure, correct?
Right, that is correct.
Jim.
Right, and I think that there's gonna be
Basketball.
additional confidentiality too for folks that are coming in for hearings, which is very important. Because right now, there's a lot of things that happen in the hallway that people expect to have some sense of privacy, and there isn't, because there's no space for it. So if there's a hearing that has more than 10 people, we're up here, and then if people want to talk, they're out in the hallways, disrupting, you know, the basic flow of people getting into the building department or anywhere else. So it's going to help out a
And
lot.
some of your matters are contentious, which really
Correct.
should.
They can get a little loud
Yeah,
downstairs.
get a little loud and
Right.
deserve some privacy.
Right.
Any other questions? Mike?
So I understand what's going on, so I'm clear. So that $12,000 check goes into the probate revenue account. So what we're voting on is taking that whole 25,000. So nothing from the contingency.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Judge.
Do you want the check, give it to Ms. Rossapal?
Good, good.
Now comes out of your revenue.
Marty, keep this up, keep bringing checks to this.
Keep bringing them in.
Does he encourage anybody else to bring checks to these meetings? Come on down.
All right, Marty. Very happy with that.
Item 10.
Move to take action regarding a request for transfer of funds in the amount of $10,000 to accommodate the hiring of a grant writer / compliance specialist. This will cover the remainder of the fiscal year. This money would move from the EDC account number 104-600-300-5100 to the finance account number 104-11900-5100.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Muller.
If you read the paper, everybody knows my position on this, but I'll speak publicly about it. Grants come in two forms, competitive and non-competitive. The non-competitive grants, department heads sit down at the computer, type it up, send it out. Public Health does it here, Board of Ed does it here, Park and Rec, they all do it. And it's money that is available, readily available, and it comes through without much discussion. The competitive grants are the small city grants, things where you're looking for, you know, the expansion of the senior center, hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are the big grants. They're very competitive, they're very difficult to write, they're very difficult to get accepted. The last two administrations, both Mayor Gromback and Mayor Murphy, hired, it was Wagner Associates out of Waterbury, and they're a professional grant writing company. It doesn't cost New Milford any money to hire them because they write their fees into the grants. So if their grants are accepted, they get paid. It's a great motivation for companies that write these competitive grants. I don't see a need for a grant writer. The previous two administrations didn't see a need for a grant writer because non-competitive ones are done in-house, and the competitive ones, you hire the professionals and it costs you nothing. So that's my point. I don't see a need for this position. Thank you.
What percentage did the grant writers take?
How they put their fee into the competitive grant, I don't know how they do that.
So there is a cost. It's just a cost in the
Yes,
other
it's
end.
built in.
It's a built-in, they get paid.
We get paid. So the town is less money by having a professional grant writer. It's just like having an in-house attorney that the previous mayor thought made more sense, as opposed to hiring an attorney when you needed one. It costs more every time you need him, but they're not always there. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm for it or against it, but you gotta get the whole story. There is a cost by using a professional grant writer.
Right.
You know, it's a cost we lose out on.
Does anybody know how many of the competitive grants you get precluded from if you have a professional firm because of the optics?
I
Do you
don't know
know?
if that's an
Depending
issue.
on grants work in different states, you can't use a paid grant writer. Connecticut is not one of those. But depending on who you're applying for, some federal grants, you cannot. It also depends who you are. And as a municipality, I'm more familiar with complete nonprofit type grants. And I believe we could, obviously we have, over the last 4 years at least. So it's possible. We've never to my knowledge, ever been turned down for using a service. But you do pay for it, you know. If they're gonna guarantee, to some degree they do, it's not a total guarantee, but if they guarantee they're gonna find you the money.
I think it's the same argument, you know, with having the town planner or hiring consultants to do that stuff is the grant writer along with the planner, which I'm a supporter of. It's someone that has vested in this town and knows about this town and cares about this town and is in this town doing stuff as opposed to hiring professional firms to do it. They care about the money. That's good. It is a good motivator, but is it always someone that has the best interest and knows what the town has and knows how to present that to somebody else? I think that both positions are important to grow this town properly.
I agree.
Also, another thing too for the council to consider, and Mr. Osipov can expound on it, when you look at our audit noticed some material weakness in our way that we manage our grants. Am I correct, Mr. Osipov?
I wouldn't call it a material weakness, it was a recommendation from the auditors that the grants should be, all the information should be centralized and easily available, and that does not occur in our town. And frankly, some grants that are written are unknown to the finance department, and we don't have all the paperwork. So the idea is to have a central depository for all the grant information. It's not only a grants writer, it's a compliance issue too, to make sure that all of the compliance regulations of the grant, meaning you file reports on a timely basis, and you know, when the auditors come, they don't have to go from department to department to department. They have a centrally located area where they can access all the information on the grants.
I'd just say one very key component of any grant is that whatever the grant specifies that your funds can be used for must be followed absolutely. And if you're found that you used it for operations rather than whatever, they can ask for the money back along with a fine. So without having somebody to follow it from, it's one thing to fill out the paperwork and get the money, and that's great. But if it can take a year, sometimes two, to expend all those funds, if somebody vested in this is not following through and you miss a report, or somebody decides, oh, you know, why don't we use this for the bathroom because we have a few extra dollars, and you cannot attest that it was used the way that it was originally written, that's a lot of trouble. So, you know, in that regard, I think having somebody on site, someone who works for the town, paying attention, has a bit of a leg up.
I'm all about the revenue. So how much will it cost us to have this particular person, and how much do we anticipate that the person will bring to the town? I mean, to me, it's black and white.
So I've charged our grant writer to come up with $2 million in grants. And Mr. Bolero, what's the salary for the grant writer?
$56,167.
So,
is there times along the way that we're going to see if these benchmarks are being met?
Yes.
Because I mean, I guess as we learned earlier, you can eliminate the position.
Yep. So there will definitely be benchmarks and metrics for the position.
It should be like a sales funnel, right? There's so many
Correct.
grants that need to get written, so many applied for, and then see how the pipeline keeps getting fed through.
Correct.
And Mayor,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
this position, like just about every position, is a probationary period at the beginning, correct?
Correct. Per our
Right.
regular town
Right.
employee.
And this position reports to the finance director, and
Yes.
you, of course, but the finance director.
Yes.
So that Greg will not end up in a situation where he's unaware of a grant that's out there
Correct.
or has come in, which is what.
So I like the idea of the compliance specialist and to have the grants in one spot. Makes all the sense in the world, because when auditors come in, you want them in and out. I know that for sure. $2 million, are you looking for that for the first year, or is that like a two-year thing?
It's our first year.
First year, okay.
First year,
Amen.
not the assistant's 3 years.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? Dr.
I
Muller?
just want to clarify a few things.
Yes, sir.
In the audit, there were no material weaknesses. So let's make sure that's very clear.
Correct.
This is
I corrected that.
He corrected it.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm double clarifying it then. And it's the first time in probably forever that's happened in an audit. Secondly, the whole problem of the recommendation in the audit about in-house grants, you just tell the department heads, make sure you get it down to the director of finance. That's such a minor issue being brought up. I mean, that, you don't need a grant writer to literally tell the department heads to send their grants down to the director of finance on a timely basis. So, thank you.
I think though that you're missing that also the compliance. I know in the past at one point, there's an opportunity for my wife to use Richmond Center for a computer class. And the Richmond Center was all for it. The Mayor Murphy is the one that actually called me and said, that's gonna hurt, I have a grant in that place for senior citizens and that can't happen. So the Richmond Center is supposed to be in charge of that, but they must have dropped the ball. So I mean, that's part of it, is the compliance. I know that, we went through that with the Economic Development Corporation because we had the grant for the facade, and we were constantly always talking about, well, are we allowed to do it this way? Does that meet the, where's the actual location? That it was, and we were a bunch of volunteers there. It'd been nice to have someone there saying, here's exactly what needs to get done.
And I do have experience with grants, and there's something I think that if you've not ever really been involved and immersed, it isn't just filling out the form, it's researching where to find money that isn't coming to you necessarily from the state or in a multi-town grant or something for roads. There are places to obtain money for a lot of things, just like getting a college scholarship if you want to study crickets in some state that somebody left money for. And that takes a tremendous amount of time, and it also takes knowledge of exactly what you're dealing with in your town. So you don't waste time looking at a grant or researching and finding out, well, you need to have X number of road miles or population. So, and asking a department head to do it, and I know they've been doing it, and certainly not to diminish what they've done, but frankly, with layoffs and trying to do more with less people while still moving the town forward into the next century, I think that means that there'll be errors. And asking someone who is not targeted on something is like asking a plumber to come and do my electrician's work. Maybe that's a little extreme, but having done grants, I can tell you it is a more than full-time job, and I'm very hopeful that our grant writer is going to do a wonderful job and find that, because that's her task. If she doesn't, then she doesn't. But that's what it takes. It's not a simple thing. It's not just filling out a form. And you can ask Julie Bailey, she'll tell you. She's a grant writer par excellence.
Mayor, do you have specific grants that you're looking at already, or ideas?
So, yes, so we're already looking to identify some, both in the economic development corridor, as well as some when it comes to just different types of grants, when it would come to youth, when it would come to seniors, the elderly. And these are grants that maybe have been overlooked, or we have department heads that are working because of the budget constraints, are pretty much working on their operations. So now you have another person that's combing the foundation lists, looking for not only public, but private foundation grants. And one of the things that I did hear when talking to department heads when I first got here was that they did have missed opportunities when it came to grants because they were busy doing their day-to-day operations. So to me, listening to some of the department heads, it made sense that if we can capture revenue, knowing as we all did pre-budget last year, that the state was going to cut our revenues, we need to be proactive rather than reactive. So that's why I proposed the grant writer position.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
In the event that we do hire a grant writer, I would like to make a request that the grant writer come in front of town council every meeting and update us he or she is doing, so we can be updated along with the public.
Yeah, at least once a
Once a
month.
month?
Once a month.
Sure.
Thank you.
Couldn't be just included in the finance director's report.
Well, the public would probably like to hear it too.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, Katie. Mayor's office.
Move motion to authorize the mayor to sign a renewal of New Milford's participation in the Northwest Regional Workforce Investment Board's intergovernmental agreement regarding workforce investment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Move for the formation and appointment of a charter revision commission.
Second.
Do we have a,
Give that one there. Give it there.
so we have a motion in a second? Okay, thank you. As you know, on February 12th, the town council approved a resolution on my recommendation to establish a charter revision commission. This is an important process set forth in statute and within our charter that we as a town are required to undergo at least once every 5 years. It has been 12 years since the last charter revision, so we're very long overdue. Tonight I bring forth the recommendations of council for the following: membership on a commission, names of members to serve, and items for special consideration for the commission to consider. Any suggestions for special consideration that were sent to me by town council members, I will ask the council for a straw poll. If a majority of the members agree and want the item considered, it will be included in the council's charge. Any item that is not included in the council's charge, of course, can be brought up at the initial public hearing by that council member or anyone in the public. In any charter revision, legally, everything about the charter can be on the table and examined. A successful charter revision in any municipality is one that keeps focused, does its work efficiently, and does not let the process drag on. Whether that happens is entirely in the hands of the Charter Revision Commission, the members themselves. At the end of the commission's process, the town council will decide what items, if any, will be brought forth to the voters. The charter is like New Milford's Constitution. If revisions are to be made, they should be made with the goal that the revisions will improve our town government for the people it serves. Because the charter serves all of New Milford, bringing consideration of any revisions to a vote in a state election year is important. State election years, the even years, consistently always draw more voters than a municipal election year. After the resolution passed the council on February 12th, my office received several inquiries from residents willing to serve. Unfortunately, per Connecticut general statutes, the town cannot appoint several who apply because it would place too many current town officials on the commission. No more than 1/3 of the total commission membership may hold any other public office, which include elected officials, appointed officials, both temporary and permanent, and justices of the peace. That made the formation very hard because New Milford is blessed with many volunteers who serve our town in many capacities. For this reason, I am recommending a commission of 12, only four who could hold office. The names I have brought forth tonight and recommend to the council for appointment are a diverse group with a wealth of experience. They represent different parts of both our community and our town government. The memberships include Councilman Paul Szymanski, Board of Finance member Joe DeGorio, former Mayor Liba Furman, former Board of Education Town Council and State Representative Cecilia Buck-Taylor, Mr. Tom Mulvihill used to work for the New Milford Board of Education, Diane Claft, Lisa Agee, Michelle Gentile, Peter Helmus, Lori Campbell, Gerard Bonacci, and Kenneth Taylor. I asked them to do their draft report by May 24th with the goal of having discussions with the town council and the public throughout the spring and summer that will bring any revisions recommended and moved forward by the town council to a vote in November 2018 election. So, As one of the advantages to having full-time in-house legal counsel, this commission will have the resource in Town Attorney Matt Grimes. Attorney Grimes will serve as the procedural advisor and clerk to the commission, assist the commission with legal notices and filings, conduct any research the commission needs done, and bring that research back to the commission at their next meeting. So the public is aware, to clear up something that may be confusing in the newspaper. There will be ample opportunity for the public to weigh in on charter revision process. It was reported that people would have until February 23rd to submit any suggestions for revisions. That is not accurate. Tentatively on March 14th, the commission will hold its initial public hearing. As I stated previously, council members or anyone from the public will be able to bring forth any items they would like considered at the initial hearing. About 2 months later, the commission will hold their second public hearing. Then, once the draft document gets officially submitted, the town council will hold a public hearing. Throughout the process, I hope New Milford residents will participate, ask questions, and offer suggestions. It's your town. That said, my recommendations that I would like the commission to examine are as follows. A suggestion that came from council members Mr. Nahom and Dr. Mullen, a look at combining the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission into a Planning and Zoning Commission. For over 10 years since the last charter revision, the Board of Finance role with respect to the proposed budget has been limited to the initial budget. The role for adjusting the budget, should the voters defeat it, has been in the hands of the mayor and the town council. Prior to the last revision, the Board of Finance was responsible for adjusting the budget defeated at referendum. As is the case with most town meeting forms of government, both in our area and throughout the state. I would like the commission to examine both the current and previous role of the Board of Finance on the budget and report back if things should stay as they've been for the last 10 years or restored to the previous practice. As I've mentioned, the suggestions I received from council members are follows. I will read each recommendation and ask council members to raise their hands, yes or no. If a majority of the members say yes, that item will go on the item for the town council's request for special consideration. If a majority of members say no, the item will not go as part of the town council's request. We are not debating the merit or lack of the merit of each of these, only deciding if the council is asking the commission to give these special consideration. So before I go, I just want to make sure I'm being compliant. Attorney Grimes, can I have the council vote on the membership first?
Say again, I'm sorry?
Should I have the council vote on the members of the commission first?
You can.
Or do it all
it's
together?
It's appropriate to put it
Do it all
on
together?
one resolution. That's
Okay,
what the
thank
state
you.
recommends.
Okay. So in addition to the questions that I had, Dr. Mullen had sent in some as well. So the first one is the town council having 9 members, 6 in districts and 3 at large. Would the town council consider changing the way the council is elected? So the 9 members currently are all at large. In other words, the whole town votes for them. Another proposal is to have 6 at large and then 6 in districts and 3 at large. So then you'd have districts now.
I'm good with that.
Are you gonna ask us yea or nay?
So all in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Opposed?
I'd like to hear the rationale behind that. I mean,
There's-
all we're deciding here is whether they can talk about it. We
And they
still
can bring it, and they can
and
bring
they
it
can
back.
vote against it
Correct.
either.
And they can bring it to the commission themselves as well.
Yeah, I don't want to limit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, all you're voting on is the commission's charge from the legislative body. Anybody from the public can bring any suggestion up to the charter.
So even if we say no here, someone from the public
Correct.
can still bring it up.
Correct.
Sure, well, what you're voting on is the legislative body's charge to the charter revision.
From us.
Yes.
Terms on appointed boards being no longer than 4 years. For clarification, nearly all the current appointed boards have terms of 4 years.
Or less.
I'm sorry, read that again, Pete.
Sure. Terms on appointed boards being no longer than 4 years. For clarification, nearly all the current appointed boards have terms of 4 years. So Attorney Grimes, can you expound on that?
Yeah, I think that, speaking with Attorney DeBella and looking at the charter as it is currently, nearly all of the appointed boards are 4 years. Conservation Commission is not at 6, I think, is the way it was initially chartered, and there's a few of them, but most of them are 4 years now. I mean, I don't know how many boards we're looking to, would be changed by this. I don't have the exact number.
I thought there were still 2 boards that were more than 4 years, and I thought they should be.
Conservation was the only one I found.
And what?
Which ones did you think?
Which one, what other ones, Pete?
I thought there was another one, I don't remember right now, I'm sorry. I should have
But
written
some
it
of
down.
these boards are staggered with 2.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you,
A
Tom.
few of the boards have some
For staggered.
2-year.
Oh, no, I understand the
Yeah.
staggering,
Yeah.
but I thought there was a second one that was more than 4.
So Mayor, we're just making it consistent for 4 years across the board, no more 2 years, no more.
No, no,
We're making it
no,
up, it's
no,
just
no,
for
no.
discussion.
This is
and-
just for discussion.
Right, we're not making
Nothing
any
to
decisions.
exceed 4
Right.
years.
Okay.
No
This is
appointment.
just to have it be a point of,
To send to the
to
commission.
look at the Charter Revision Committee so they can take it under advisement.
Give them a sense of where to go.
That's all.
I'm on it.
They could say yea or nay.
Thank you.
There's something for sale.
All those in favor?
Alright.
In favor of that.
Opposed?
Is it unanimous?
Okay, so it's yes.
Yeah,
Eliminate the Board of Finance.
What?
Eliminate the Board of Finance.
no, I've heard this
Opposed?
before.
Surprised me. Surprised me.
No, you don't need it.
Is that just one, you're only voting yes?
I was voting yes on my own proposal.
You can propose it later if it's all right.
It'd be bad if I voted against it, huh?
Walter,
We're outvoted anyhow, so that's fine.
you voting yes too, though, Walter?
If the Board,
Eliminate the Board of Finance, yes.
if the Board of Finance remains in place, the term should be 2 years.
What is it now for?
Should run concurrent with the town council.
It's all right.
You're in a statute violation area.
Thank you.
State statute, pretty much 9-210. It doesn't use the words 4 years, but when you look for the time the Board of Finance gets established by a town that's been here 50 some odd years now, it works out to 4-year terms.
Thank you.
So, I
So
will ask a
that one.
question. Is that your suggestion? So can't that, what you just said, I understand 50 years and it's every 2, cannot that be adjusted if, in the discussion as well?
No, the state statutes won't allow it.
So the year you start is the year you stuck with till forever? You're saying it works out
The
to be...
question I was asked to look into, I think, was whether you could make a Board of Finance a 2-year term, not a 4-year term.
Right.
The state statutes don't.
And the answer to that is no?
No, unless somebody was to eliminate the Board of Finance and then start it all over again, then you would get 2-year terms for a few years, but it would eventually work itself out to 4-year terms, 9-210.
Seems weird.
But we can still talk about that. So you need us to vote?
No, because that one doesn't file a term, or we can vote on it. All in favor? Opposed?
Wait, what was the question?
Well, the concern here is
If the
that
Board of
if
Finance-
there is a state statute that overrules this, then it's not
There's no
worth
point.
discussing.
Got it.
Okay? I did not know there was a state
So
statute.
if you check that, you could bring it.
So,
Right, so you want
Fair
to
enough.
withdraw that, Dr. Muller?
that would be fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, excuse me.
Thank you. Okay, if the Board of Finance is to remain in place, then their charge is to advise with the town council making the final decision on the budget.
That's me too. I think the responsibility should be here. I think the final responsibility should be here. I think there's advisement by the Board of Finance, but I think people in the town have a better idea of who's on your town council than they have any clue who's on finance. And when they vote, they recognize these names, and the responsibility should be here. That's my viewpoint.
I think they should look at that.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Is that everybody again? Yes.
Next is update the Code of Ethics based on the state of Connecticut's Code of Ethics. Attorney Grimes, you were looking at that?
Mayor, the current Code of Ethics does reference the state, the Code of Ethics is in ordinance, it's not in charter. The current Code of Ethics does reference the state statutes which govern ethics, so it could be moved from the code to the charter perhaps, but what we have now is pretty much compliant with the state Code of Ethics, according to Attorney DeBello to me.
Okay, you just used a term called pretty much. Is it, or is it not?
It is.
Let me just be, pretend you're.
Well, there's a reference to the state statute. There is a reference to the state statute governing ethics. And in the problems that arise in charter revisions with codes of ethics is that when you do not have a reference to that state statute, as ours does in 6B2, the Code of Ethics doesn't have teeth. You can't enforce, a municipality
So currently
can't
we would
enforce it.
fall back to the state statute?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's right there
Okay.
in accordance with the provision of 7148H of the Connecticut General Statutes. That's the
So-
first sentence of our
Okay.
code.
Minority got it.
Well, my feeling on it, the reason I brought this up, when I read the two of them, I just felt ours was much weaker than the state's. And I think if we had one that we followed versus ours and referencing theirs, I think it would be a little cleaner. I think it's something they should look at.
I agree.
I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't hear you.
No, I have no problem discussing it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You gotta give these guys something to do.
Having the town clerk and town collector appointed instead of elected.
The town clerk and the tax collector?
Correct, sorry, tax collector.
Appointed rather than
Appointed
elected?
instead of elected.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
I see, the town is not a little town anymore, okay? Years ago, there were maybe 5,000 people in town. Everybody really knew each other. All right, you're the tax collector, you're the town clerk. If I need a license, I'll come in. That's wonderful. The jobs have grown enormously. They're department head positions today. I don't think they should be elected. I think there should be a criteria for them to run that department. I should think there should be a job description just like there is for every other department head. I have no complaints about the job they're doing. This is not a personal issue with any of them. But I think we've outgrown those positions being elected. So that's why I put it out there.
So is that then the same type of thing where the person is appointed by the mayor and or whoever the town council is at the time?
The director of personnel has applications come in, and they interview them, and then, the town council will make the final decision of the hire. Give me a few hmms out there.
Yeah, no. Aye or nay?
I think that's,
Yep.
I think electing.
Can I just want to clarify that by saying aye, it only means it's going to be spoken about.
Right.
And more information will
Right,
come
sure.
out. So these kernels of interest can
Be flushed out.
Sure. Aye.
pop.
Yes?
Yes.
Aye.
Right.
No? Okay.
Here comes the last one.
Okay.
Is this still you?
This is nice. The mayor asked,
Yes.
so I typed in, I sent recommendations. How many did you send in? Huh? How many?
I didn't get that email.
You didn't get the email? You're Mr. Email, come on.
Go ahead.
Elimination of the office of mayor and the hiring of a town manager.
Oh, this is, you've all written all this.
Mayor.
What's the difference?
Oh.
Hold on a second, let me go through
Please,
my argument.
thank you.
As I've said before, and this is not new, so it's also not personal. And it's the same argument again. The town's gotten very big. And the demands are very large. And we're not the only town that has faced this issue. Where you look at the mayor as a department head. And you put certain requirements on that position. And then a person gets hired to do the job. So,
And in a sense, it's,
the same process as any department head.
Right. But the mayor decides.
no.
You would no longer have a mayor.
So us, the council is.
You had a town council and you had a town manager.
And you have a human resource department. So in effect, it's more like a business. You have
Aren't
a
you the
manager.
guy that told me years ago you can't run a town like a business bee? We had this.
No, this is what I said, this is what I said. Government is government. When you read the Constitution, the government is formed for the general welfare of the people. So your government is not to make a profit, it's to look out for the people. A business is to make a profit. All right? The business aspects of running the government have become enormous
Yes.
over the years.
For sure.
But what
So-
about, like, New York City's got a mayor, they're pretty good.
City's got a mayor. San Francisco's
Oh
got
my
a mayor,
God.
San Francisco's got a mayor. Stanford's got a mayor. Danbury's
Yes.
got a mayor.
And they got,
And they get a town manager
but-
for another $175,000 for another person that's going to
oh, the
part of
cost,
the mix.
oh, you're right, the
Yeah,
cost
and
would be,
that's what it's gonna cost.
oh,
right?
it would be
It's
double.
$150,000 to $200,000.
You're absolutely right.
All day long.
Totally agree with you, 100%.
However,
So I don't want to be mayor, I want to pay cut.
there are towns, over in New York State, there are several towns right near us that work with the town manager.
Yeah, and there are
New
towns in
Jersey,
Connecticut.
and
Yeah,
townships,
so-
they do that. It's not a topic that's,
So all those in favor?
let's discuss it.
Let's discuss.
Want
Opposed?
to talk about it? Talk about it
Opposed?
all day long.
Hold on, keep your hands up please for in favor.
Go ahead,
We
let's
do
talk
want to
about
move into the 22nd century at some point, so I think it's worth talking about it.
it. You talk about it.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
I think the town people should have a say in.
Yes.
Oh, I do too, but I'm dying to hear this discussion.
You got 4-4.
So I don't want to rob the people of this one.
What's that?
It was 5-3.
It's 5-3.
Can't you count? See, you vote for your town.
Pursuant to the town council's resolution on February 12th, 2018, a charter revision commission of the 12 members would be as follows: Paul Szymanski, Leva Furman, Joe DeGorio, Cecilia Buck-Taylor, Pete Helmus, Tom Mulvihill, Lisa Agee, Lori Campbell, Michelle Gentile, and I had,
Ken Taylor and Diane Clay.
yep, thank you.
That's only 11, you said 12. Somebody's
Diane
missing.
Claff, and who was the other one? That you forgot just now?
Ken Taylor,
Ken
Diane, Gerard Bonacci. Sorry.
Mayor, I wish you had sent these names to us.
Is this a cross-section of political lines too? Is that-
Yes, so here's the list. I'm gonna pass it down.
There's a few of them now. I think we share.
We can share.
Is it-
We've got plenty. We've got plenty.
Good job.
So Mayor, more suggestions will be made at this first meeting and other meetings afterwards?
Correct.
Such as the establishment of an energy task force, as we were bound by years ago, for at least, we do have a Milford Energy Task Force that is now in place covering our clean energy community participation. I'd like to see one of those as a task force in the future.
That would be it when you would
At
go.
those
you
meetings,
come
right,
to-
just throwing it out there, not now, I know it
So
can't be
this-
included on the list, but
Right.
We're all there
something
year
that
in, year
So this is just for,
a road committee, permanent.
this is just for the members?
Good people. Yep.
Oh, and then, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And next, be it further resolved that addition,
Hold on, did everybody vote on that?
Yeah, you have to put your hands up. Straw vote here.
Was that everybody? Okay.
be it further resolved that in addition to the topics selected for consideration by commission members, the town council requests the commission to consider possible combination of planning commission and zoning commission into a planning and zoning commission, evaluation of Board of Finance role in adjusting the budget, post-referendum prior to and since the last charter revision, terms on appointed boards being no longer than 4 years. If the Board of Finance is to remain in place, then well, that's the same thing as the Board of Finance is now,
I thought I
correct?
pulled that one out.
Yep, sorry. update the code of ethics based on the state of Connecticut Code of Ethics. Having the town clerk and tax collector appointed instead of elected. Elimination of the office of mayor and the hiring of a town manager. Was there any other ones that I missed?
That's what I sent in.
Yep.
Good job.
So other stuff to be added, I'm assuming.
Yes.
You can add
One
it
more
when they're-
time.
yep, when they're-
Everybody out here, all
Just wanna make sure.
28,892 people, plus us.
Be it further resolved that the commission report back to the town council with the commission's draft report no later than Thursday, May 24th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, moving forward. Move to authorize the mayor to sign a certified resolution to apply pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 32-763 for financial assistance in the amount of $200,000 for developing a comprehensive plan for the remediation and redevelopment of multiple brownfields called the Brownfield Area-Wide Revitalization, or BAR, Planning Grant, to the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. The town of New Milford respectfully requests a BAR planning grant in the amount of $200,000 for preparation to be used for a New Milford Riverfront Revitalization Master Plan. All right. Everybody over there say that?
Any discussion?
That's good, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Move the following appointments and reappointments to boards, commissions, and committees. We could do this separately if you'd like, or all together. Let's do them.
Can we do a whole subcommittee as one?
We can, that's what I was gonna say. So we'll start with Town Facilities Utilization Subcommittee. The term for all the people I will read runs from February the 26th, 2018 through August the 13th, 2018. And that would be the appointment of Wendy A. Fallenbach, Paula Szymanski, Stephen A. Confortini, Alex Barisha, withdrawn is Thomas Pilla, Nicholas Puder, Joseph D. Gregorio, Gary Hita, Michael T. Sinello.
Any discussion?
Are you, so the town's taking off, are you adding anyone else, or you just keep it with who you have?
Well, I'm going to ask the public at large if someone else is interested in taking the place of Mr. Phillip. Please bring their name forward.
There were some.
Yep.
So what is it?
Yep.
If more than one person requests to be on it, would you make it 10, or do you want to keep it to 9? Just curious.
Keep it
I don't want to be
Get
on
on
Yeah.
with it.
I was just going to ask you, want to be on?
Looking for another job, Michael?
All in favor?
Guess
All
what?
right.
I don't know the committee.
All those in favor?
There we go.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Move for the appointment of Stephen Looney for the Community Center Committee to run from February 26, 2018 through July 23rd, 2018.
Second.
Isn't this the open question here?
Excuse me?
Is he an elector?
I have a letter from Attorney DeBella, and it's concerning the appointment of a non-elector to an ad hoc committee, which I'll be handing out to the council.
Why don't you summarize the letter? So I don't
To
have to
be-
read the whole thing.
It's
Okay.
okay.
So basically, the letter just says that because the committee is an advisory committee of residents, asked to study the potential uses of JPS and to make findings and a report to the council. Clearly, unless authorized by charter or statute, neither of which confers such authorization or status, the members are not municipal officials. And then he has Connecticut General Statutes 9/185. Thus, since the appointment is to an advisory committee that is not statutorily required to be comprised of electors, Connecticut General Statutes 9-186 is inapplicable. Moreover, Charter Section 405 does not require an ad hoc special committee in nature of an advisory panel of residents to be electors. Accordingly, the appointee's status as an elector is not material unless the position renders person a municipal officer or a charter provision or statute created the board or commission requires that it be compromised of electors, conditions that are absent from the facts on which I was asked to opine. The question of minority representation is not an issue. The non-elector would be anagrillious, I'm probably mispronouncing the word, to an unaffiliated voter.
So basically, since they have no real power,
Correct.
they don't.
Yes.
I'd like to talk in support of Mr. Looney. Mr. Looney has done an awful lot for this community. Not only is he a business owner, he's a resident of this town. And anybody who claims that would be discrimination, so the people who are in favor of opposing him are discriminating against him, okay? You're the same folks that would have no problem somebody showing up the ballot box without any sort of proof of ID to vote on the day of election, but we can't have one of the leading taxpayers, one of the leading contributors to the town to participate. You can say anything you want in the background. You're really not supposed to be talking during these proceedings. I'd like Mr. Looney to come up and maybe tell us a little bit about himself, considering that people have taken shots at him for the last 2 meetings here. Mr. Looney, would you like to come on up and at least tell us why you'd like to participate on this committee?
I think we have to waive Robert's Rules of Order to have somebody speak at this time, and I would like to keep this discussion going at this time.
Right.
Okay.
I agree. Okay, so we have a...
May I have
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
the floor? Thank you. All right. You shouldn't speak to the public like that. I understand you're emotional about it. That's inappropriate behavior. And it's also inappropriate because the last 2 years, there's been more garbage on social media, going both ways. So now when it's hitting a friend of yours, don't be surprised. This isn't a personal issue. This is literally, is he an elector or not? That's the whole issue here. And when I was reading things, it sure looked like if you're not a citizen, you can't even be on one of these committees. Randy DeBella says otherwise. I'll read this later, what I just got. Randy DeBella has not always been correct. So, let's move on.
Just to the point of that, though, we've known for 2 weeks that Randy was going to give an opinion. If you felt that strongly about it, you should have gotten legal advice the other way, not just someone from the audience reading that doesn't have a law degree. I'm not saying that you're wrong or not, but we got a legal opinion from someone that has a lot of experience in this matter, and that to me, I'm trusting Randy. Is he always right? No, but that's the legal opinion I have right in front of me.
The trust isn't the issue, it's the verification that's the issue.
And that's what I'm saying. If you
When
felt that
I
strongly-
read through this, I interpreted it differently. That's all.
But I'd rather go with an interpretation of some of you as well.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next.
Move for the appointment to Hidden Treasures Park Committee, Ron E. Evans, run from February 26, 2018 through July 25th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move the appointment to the Film Commission of George T. Barnett. He'll be filling a vacancy. His term would be February 26, 2018 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move the appointment of Corey Linder to the Board of Finance as an alternate. His term will run February 26, 2018 through November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move the appointment of Timothy J. Harkin to the Planning Commission as an alternate filling a vacancy. His term would be February 26, 2018 through November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.